Now, Blake, I know that UFC Vegas 8 was just the most entertaining card we've seen in this whole time that we've been hosting fights out of the Apex Center, correct?
Yep, top to bottom,
Top to bottom, phenomenal card. Uh,
especially
uh,
the top,
Especially the main
especially
card.
the
The main
last two
card,
fights.
the co-main, the main event, it blew
Barn
me away.
burners.
Instant classics were those. No, I'm sorry. We're not being serious at all. It's hard to say because I've actually really liked all the cards that we've had in the Apex and on Flat Island, like this whole empty arena kind of era. I've really enjoyed the cards. There've been a lot of talent. The first four fights of this card were good, and then the first fight of the main card was good. But besides that, it really was, It most it really felt like it. I was especially the letdown of the co-main and main really just kind of stick with you, but we'll get into that more. It's time to recap UFC Vegas 8. Then it's also time to talk some heavyweights with Stipe and Francis and John Jones, and also maybe a new little wrench in the cog of Brock Lesnar becoming a free agent. We'll get into that. Also talking about where we go with light heavyweights. But first off, like we were saying, UFC Vegas 8. The prelims were better than the main card. Honestly, I enjoyed seeing the. I was pleasantly surprised, and it was kind of fun seeing the first four fights of the night end in a first or second round submission.
Yeah, that was definitely interesting. I like it when it goes quick,
Oh, we were speeding through
especially
this
not
thing.
to be mean, but especially when girls that I don't know are involved.
That's fair. Okay, don't get us canceled, internet mob. Blake, you're going to get us canceled, bro. Come on. But this first
They
one,
got to fight.
you can say the first one about this one though. Yeah, you were telling me that this is probably one of the most excited you've actually ever been while
Yeah,
watching a fight.
yeah. I was telling you earlier. I was like literally up screaming at my television. I thought it
Like
was.
this, the fight between Hannah Cyphers and Mallory Martin started off the card. Cyphers looked really good in the first round, but then Mallory got that. But you were just yelling some stuff at the TV with Hannah going off, huh?
Yeah, beating the crap out of this girl, and I really thought she was going to get that finish there in the first round. I mean, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was something like 51 significant strikes, something crazy to maybe under 10 for Mallory. Uh, but then I also noticed when she was going back to her corner, to go sit on the stool, that she looked super spent, very exhausted,
Mm-hmm.
and so when they were talking earlier in the fight about how Mallory Martin had the ground game advantage by a long shot too, I was thinking it could be an easy way for her to victory in the second and third round, because Cyphers looked like she just emptied the tank in the first round, and Mallory, to her credit, took her best shot. I mean, it looked like she was knocked out
Mm-hmm.
with one of
Mm-hmm.
those overhand rights or whatever hand it was. Cyphers hit her with a really good shot. It looked like she was out, and may have really come back to to her senses for just a second,
Yeah, it was
just long enough for her to stay in that fight. So props to her for that. But I
right.
thought Cyphers easily could have got that W.
Yeah, it's almost like something that we saw when Anthony Smith fought Texera, where he had Glover on the rocks. Probably when he was milliseconds away from, like, he was a couple punches away from knockout in a lot of the points, but then he didn't get that. He was spent, and then the other fighter just kind of takes over with that. That's kind of what we saw with Mallory, especially if you're going to be a tired fighter, especially as tired as Cyphers appeared to be in the second round, and you end up on the ground with someone with the skill set of Mallory Martin. It's not going to end well 9 times out of 10, and that's exactly what happened here.
It's crazy to me too. Like after the fight, Cyphers was the one that looked like she took the most damage too by a long shot.
Right? It was.
I mean, her face was all jacked up, bloody,
Mm-hmm.
and beat up. But I mean, she just probably took, I guess, just blunt blows.
Mm-hmm.
So
Then.
not really getting cut by those short little glove
Mm-hmm.
taps that she was doing to her face. So I mean, yeah, just gnarly, man. It's crazy how the fight ended up.
100%. And then also, the next one I want to talk about is heavy favorite Sean Brady, proving why he was such a heavy favorite against Christina Aguilera when Sean scores the performance of the night bonus with his second round submission. Sean did there's a reason why there's a lot of people kind of like hype on this up and comer Sean Brady, and he put on the show for us, and he kind of proved himself, or at least proved what he was about on Saturday.
Yeah, he's a teammate with Paul Felder, if I'm not mistaken, right?
And then because Paul was telling people about the guillotine, and he wasn't lying about that one. That guillotine was it looked like he was choking him out with one arm with that guillotine. That's how strong it looked.
Yeah, I mean, he had it locked in. That was a crazy submission. The guy looked really impressive, though. I mean, everywhere in the fight. And Aguilera, he had that impressive KO victory in his last bout, didn't he? Or was it a? Can't remember exactly, but I know he fought in the Apex recently and had a really impressive performance. Yeah, he knocked out Anthony Ivy back on June 13th. So that was a good win for Sean Brady. I think that was his debut, right? So yeah, that's exciting in the welterweight division. There's some studs coming up in that division all the time.
Welterweight's looking decent, and hopefully we're getting the slate for December at UFC 256, I believe. Burns finally gets his shot against Kamaru Usman. Knock on wood that everything goes well this time. And also in the welterweights, you have Diaz and Masvidal for the possibly with the BMF rematch. We'll see.
I'm here for it.
Hey,
I mean, you sound more against it than I am. But...
See, the thing is, I don't want to sound against it because it may not like be the best like fight to make, but if they're going to make it, I'm going to have a lot of fun watching it. And so, hell yeah, just let me watch two dudes who like to duke it out. We need.
Let's get a different referee in there too, that and let people know that.
Or we just don't have it in New York, where the New York State Athletic Commission likes to screw things
Apex.
up. Just put it in. No, fingers crossed. We have to get fans for that one, but just not Apex, but hey, maybe even if we're lucky enough,
you think we're gonna get fans in 21? Actually, I don't know. I mean, if we get fans in, I'll tell you what. If we get fans in the NFL, there's a possibility.
Okay. Fingers crossed that we're not going to see this fight in the Apex, or we're going to see it in T-Mobile Arena with at least a limited capacity crowd. Fingers crossed. And then also one thing I want to highlight on this prelims is a point you brought up, Blake, is why do people keep on trying to pick on Alex Caceres?
I don't know. If fighters, their managers better take notice. Like if your guy doesn't have a lot of experience and he's looking for an easy dub coming into the UFC, or maybe just a stepping stone, so to say. Caceres ain't the guy to go to. No. I mean, that's two guys in a row.
Alex Caceres is no joke.
Yeah, that was another big highlight. No more fro. So
it was weird.
I kind of miss it.
It took me a second to recognize him, if I'm being honest. But
hey, but he looks sharp. I mean, credit to him getting the first round sub on a newcomer to the UFC. Not really too sure on the guy's history before that, so I can't really speak too much on Austin Springer. But Caceres again, just making easy work of a newcomer kind of guy.
And now the last fight on the prelims it concerns a man that seems to be putting some more people on notice. The middleweight fighter Impa Kasegane. I'm sorry, I probably butchered the hell out of it. That's just my role on the show.
That's pretty good.
Against Makai Pitolo, it was a good fight. It was a good fight, but one of my friends that does participate in the MMA, he was telling me that apparently, and I've been looking into it more, so apparently Impa has been training MMA for about only a year. About really training for a year. And he looked pretty good in this fight. It was a fairly even contest, with Makai making a statement. He taking round one, but then Impa taking the next two. But he looked talented. Both fighters look great out there. Both fighters did look great, but I think Impa, I think he has a future in the sport, and I think that he could be making some statements in that middleweight division, especially if he wants to keep on fighting in the Apex.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, credit to Maki Pitolo, I think is his name. He's already fought 3 times this year.
Yeah.
June, August, and August again, 2 times in August. Wow.
Dude's a beast for that.
He got submitted first round by Darren Stewart at
UFC
254.
I still respect people when you're losing. If you're just going
Oh,
back into the
absolutely.
cage, a lot of respect for that.
We don't disrespect on this podcast.
No, no
But
disrespect.
back to the fight though.
Hmm.
Impa, this is his debut as well, so we had like a lot of debutantes on this card.
That's
Um,
just been the motto over the last few months. I love it. I love seeing all the fresh blood in the UFC. It's really exciting.
yeah, he did well though. That was a close fight. I mean, when you look at the numbers,
Hmm.
it was within looks like about 15, 16 strikes of each other. So really close fight. I think that was a good fight for him to go into as his debut because Maki Pitolo is a guy that's going to bring the fight. I mean, I've been following Pitolo since I think it was in 2018 or 2019. He had his contender series bout,
Mm.
and he ended up knocking. I think he knocked a dude out or like had a really good kind of fight of the night performance.
Hmm.
And so he's always been kind of an impressive guy. And for man, I don't none of the first and the last name of this guy kind of scare me. So I don't know.
Right.
I'm just gonna call him IK. He for him to go out there and beat this guy, in a 3-round decision like that, that's impressive for his first fight in the UFC.
100%. That's a really good first fight to have. But then also you mentioning fight of the night. Let's talk about what was fight of the night. And it really sucks when we had this main card. It was a good, all in all, good prelims. Then we go into this main card, which on paper it looks good. Then we have this amazing fight between Ricardo Lamas and Bill Alego. LGO, and I thought this was going to set the tone for the main card, but I ended up just kind of building us up and then just dropping us right back down with what ended up happening. But this fight was a barn burner from first belt or from the first clap of the ref's hands to the last horn. And they really just pushed the pace and went all out in this fight.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Bill Algeo came out in the first round, and I thought he was going to knock Ricardo Lamas out.
Mm-hmm.
The way that he was looking towards the end of the first, and even in the second, he had him. I think was it the second round he hit him with that knee right to the chops.
I think so. He had him
Oh
rocked
my
with
god,
that.
Algeo hit Lamas with some tough stuff in that fight, and Lamas just kept just bit down on the mouthpiece, just kept coming forward, and really relied on his grappling pedigree. I feel like,
Mm-hmm.
and really, I feel like outclassed him in the wrestling department.
100%. Well, we
So-
could see that in the ground game where they were
Mhm.
fairly even in the stand-up the first two rounds.
I'd say Algeo's definitely had the better of him on the feet.
I think
Definitely.
I would say he had the better of him, but if we go to round 3, Ricardo Lamas took over on the ground with outstriking Algeo 28-2.
Yeah.
That's
And that's what you got. That's what a veteran does,
Mhm.
They know where their strengths lie, and they exploit their opponent's weaknesses. And I think he did that perfectly. He saw it. I'm getting kind of pieced up here on the feet. If I can stop that, if I need to, either be all the way close
Mhm.
or I got to be dirty boxing. I got to be on top of him. I got to be getting him to the ground somehow, because if I stay at range, he's gonna piece me up. I mean, there was at least 2 times in that fight where I thought Lamas was going to be finished. And, credit to him, he stayed through and got the job done. I mean, it was an
phenomenal
impressive
performance by both fighters. One for Bill
50K
for
worthy.
easily 50K.
They got the fight of the night, right?
They got the fight of the night.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
100%, and they deserve it anyway. But Bill looked
yeah.
really good on the feet.
Looks hecka good. I think he was wasn't he on the Contender Series too? I feel like I watched him fight as well.
It sounds bad, but I mean, this is the first year I've really started paying attention to the Contender Series.
Dude, I'm telling
Shame
you,
on
there's
me.
studs
Shame
on
on
the
me.
Contender Series. If
It's-
you have
it's been
ESPN
a-
Plus, it's worth it.
That's the only reason to have ESPN Plus is for UFC. 100,
Yeah,
pretty much,
absolutely.
right? And
pretty
but
much.
then Ricardo Lamas,
There's a couple
really
good
good.
shows now too, though. Ariel and Chael can be pretty entertaining sometimes.
Chael is always entertaining. Let's be real. With the man from the mean streets of Wesleyan, Oregon, he's always a blast, especially when he's undefeated the way he is. But Ricardo Lamas, to
Never
your
lost.
point, Blake, for being able to make the veteran performance
Adjustments.
and the adjustments and be able to recognize, like you said, that has a fault in one part of his game, so he just goes to his strength and Bill's weakness, and then he takes it to the ground, gets more control, gets more punches landed, and that's what got him the dub ultimately. So really good move on that.
Super solid.
But
great
as
performance.
As I alluded to, the co-main and main event were. Can we
did you hear though? Do you remember, just to highlight too for Ricardo Lamas? If he didn't win that fight, he probably retired.
I didn't catch that part. Damn. So good for him for staving off retirement.
he really I don't know if you remember the post fight interview, but he was in tears, man. He was really emotional. Damn. How he like went back, to his stool, and he was just like thinking about how I got to win this fight for my son. I promised him I'd come back with a win. And then he literally was describing that and like was getting pulled to tears on air.
I'm getting goosebumps by hearing that. Damn, I unfortunately missed that, but
because he's not had the best of records recently.
No.
He's fought some really tough dudes. I mean, Josh Emmett being one of them knocked him out. And that's really what surged his career upwards.
And that's no fault to if you get knocked out by Josh Emmett, that's not really saying anything bad about you. That's almost what's expected.
Only like 90% of the people he fights get knocked out by
right? Josh Emmett with the fury of God in those hands. Can't wait till he's back. Can't wait till he ends up if Volkanovski's still champ. I'm sure he's shaking at the thoughts of Josh Emmett being healthy again.
Dude, Josh Emmett is a stud.
He bad could man.
Give anyone
hey, but also speaking of Josh Emmett, if you haven't checked it out yet, go back about a month and check out our amazing interview, video and audio with the Josh Emmett.
At this, I think you're just telling the same people over and over again at this point.
Hey, no, we actually we've been adding listeners to the show. I've been seeing the numbers go up, and I really appreciate the hell out of that. You guys are the best. Blake, you're a hater. Okay, you think you'd be a little more supportive. I don't need that. But go check it out. Really good interview, actually. And he's just a fun guy to talk with. He's a really down-to-earth man, and it was an honor to talk with him. But let's get on into the worst part about the card, Blake, which was the co-main and main event.
Why aren't you going to talk about Grasso?
Oh,
you're just not going to shout out Grasso? And
sorry,
how she moved up to
Grasso.
the flyweight division.
I just want to get the bad stuff over with, but yeah, let's stave it off. Alexa Grasso.
Alexa Grasso had a good performance. I mean, that fight was fun. I actually enjoyed watching that fight. Her and that Kim, they both had some really. They both had some really good exchanges in that fight. So credit to Grasso getting the dub.
See, at the same time, though,
she's up to 125 now. Who knows if she stays at 125? It looks like she is going to stay at 125.
I like her, but with this fight, I was kind of expecting it, though, especially with someone coming into the fight a negative 300 favorite.
It's just another top 10 flyweight moves up to 125, which just increases the talent level of the 25 division, gives them more fight possibilities.
Flyweights are
Cynthia Calvillo's in there now. I mean, we're in the featherweight division, or not the featherweight. I'm sorry, the strawweight division.
Yep,
it's very, very, very thick at the top, I would say.
100%. You can't talk about the what's called featherweights because that division is going to be over soon, and that's my prediction on that once.
Okay, now to the bad stuff.
Are we okay?
We just got to shout out Grasso.
Shout out to Grasso. Okay.
If she listens to this podcast, I'm single. If you're single, I don't.
God bless you, Grasso.
Just because you seem like a nice lady.
Oh, you seem like a fantastic lady. Fantastic in the octagon as well. Interview, please. But yeah, the bad stuff. Let's get this over with before we can get on to the rest of the fun stuff of the show. Robbie Lawler was not impressive. Can we say that? Is that too much of an understatement?
So basically, I just don't get what Robbie's doing at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's easy for us to kind of sit in a chair and nitpick his fights and say, oh, you should have done this, you should have done that. But I mean, he legitimately isn't doing anything. Like, there was one round, I think he threw one punch.
Yeah,
and that's a fact. Like the round score showed like he threw one punch.
The first his little breakdown in standing strikes landed from the.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
First, second, and third goes 4, 2, and 9.
Oh, okay, so it was 2. I was off by 1.
So you're off by 1.
2 and 9.
Yeah,
that's unbelievable.
With total strikes being at. 41 strikes, but nothing significant.
So he landed 15 strikes?
He landed 26 significant strikes, whether it be on the feet, in the clinch, and on the ground.
Okay.
That total, but to Neil Magny, 62.
Over 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He looked so hesitant for some reason.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there was a couple times where I was like, dude, just unload.
It's the ruthless Robbie Lawler. Where's the Robbie Lawler? I mean, I'm sure he's not... No offense to him, but he's not as talented as when he was having those blood fights with back in the day when he was
the wear and tear he's had, though. I mean,
the wear and tear,
torn ACL.
I mean, the street fights in Hawaii probably aren't helping.
Yeah,
those little bar fights probably aren't helping. But
bar fights, he's been in bar fights.
Yeah, little bar fights. But it's hard because
never heard about that. I thought Robbie was a good guy.
He's a beast, but at least back in his prime when he was champ, he's an animal. But I don't want to sound mean, but he just looks like a shell of his former self, and it hurts to watch.
So what happens, man? You can't stay at the top in this game for very long, I feel like.
I know he doesn't want to be done, especially a guy like Robbie, but it might be time to hang up the gloves.
Yeah, I think so.
Unfortunately.
I mean, you're fighting these top guys still. Neil Magny didn't really destroy him by any means.
He had a solid performance.
Had a good performance, but still, I mean, a better guy closer to the top is probably going to finish Lawler easily.
Mm-hmm.
Covington didn't finish him, did he?
No, he just dominated him, but he did not finish.
Yeah.
He just dominated him for 5 rounds. Is all he did. He only landed one punch every 2 seconds.
Yeah, no, that was what I was saying. Like, Robbie was a punching bag in that fight. So I mean, it's just like that's 2 fights now in a row, kind of like Tyron Woodley, you know.
Well, Tyron's only lost 10 rounds in a row, and in a couple weeks he's about to lose 15 rounds in a row once Colby Covington retires. And
I'm looking forward to that fight.
Oh, it's gonna be so good. Of course, we'll have our very own show for that because that's gonna be fun. But at the same time, although Neil Magny didn't light the world on fire, I still think he deserves a little bit more respect on him and on his performance in this division. He is closing in. He's 2 fights away from tying GSP's win total in the welterweight division, and that's no small feat. He's at 17 right now. GSP's record is at 19. Although Robbie Lawler is depleted, he's not in the same self, and Neil Magny didn't finish him, I still think he's done a lot and he's improved a lot, and I think he's
on a run now.
He's on a run, and I think people should be a little more worried about Neil Magny. And now with the main event.
Hey, shout out Neil Magny again.
Shout out Neil Magny.
3 fights this year already.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's
another guy added to the club.
2 of the best things in this era, in the previous months, has been debuts and just people getting fights in, and that's awesome. So shout out Neil Magny.
Man, he's taking them all to a 3rd round decision too. 15 minutes.
That's no joke.
45 minutes total in the octagon this year.
That's no joke. That is no joke at all.
That's crazy, dude.
And also, but man, oh man, what has happened to Anthony Smith? Albeit he's had very good talent in his last 2 fights. He took this fight only like with a month or so from his beatdown against Glover. But I hate to say this because I love him as a person and a fighter. He's one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
But he's looked bad the last couple fights. He's looked bad the last seven rounds. He's looked bad because he looked really good in the first 3 rounds against Glover, but the last 2 were awful. But Alexander, Ratchik, he wants...
You said Ratchet?
Yeah, Ratchet. That's his name. Alexander Ratchet. That's his name, dude. You don't know? Alexander Ratchet. He looked good. He controlled the fight, and he looked good on the feet and on the ground. But at the same time, him trying to make a statement for a light heavyweight title fight after this win is that's just no. Just no. 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 Your thoughts on this fight, though, Blake?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, you got to either have a crazy, head of steam, right? Like kind of like Cody Garbrandt when he was coming up in the bantamweight division and was just knocking people out. Mm-hmm. And then he started calling out Dom Cruz, and it's like when that guy's knocking everyone out that he's fighting, heck yeah, like get that guy to fight the champion.
Yeah.
Rakic, sorry, you're not doing all that.
I mean,
Not to mention you just lost to Ozdemir like 1 or 2 fights ago.
Right.
So I mean, let's nip that in the bud.
Also, there's no way in hell that Santos and Teixeira, which takes place in a
Yeah.
couple weeks, that is obviously the number one contender fight.
And that was going to be my other point is you either have to have that type of a streak going where you got some heat behind you, or you got to beat the number one contender. And in my opinion, and I think everyone else's opinion, the number one contenders are already in a fight. Jan and
Dominic Reyes, which is taking place at UFC 253.
And there's already someone else after that fighting, Glover versus
Santos.
Exactly, Thiago Santos.
Yeah. That is easily the number one contender spot. Well,
I think so. Depending on how good Thiago looks, I think so.
I think depending on how either one of these guys go, I think those are the top two in the division, I would say, besides Reyes and Blazkowicz, in terms of position for a title shot. Because you have Thiago, so you're going to have the 1 and 3 with Dominic and Jan fighting for the title, for the vacant title. Then you're going to have 2 Santos and 4 Glover, who made that big jump with his beatdown of Anthony Smith.
Yep.
And so Anthony Smith, unfortunately, so Alexander is up there at 5 now. He jumped 3 spots, with Anthony Smith dropping 3 spots to number 8 now. So Alexander could very well make a point that he should be. Alexander should fight the loser of Glover and Thiago. I think that's a smart fight to make if we want to book a little more down the road for the light heavyweights. I'm perfectly okay with that. Give the winner of Santos Teixeira the fight, the shot against either Reyes or Blazkowicz after that championship is actually unvacated, I guess, and put onto someone.
Yep.
And my thing for Anthony Smith is I would be okay with putting him against either, I'd say, Ozdemir or Krylov. I think that's the next thing for him.
He's already fought Ozdemir.
Sorry, Krylov. Maybe has he fought Prochazka?
No, that would, dude. Come on.
Is that too mean?
I think Prochazka would bust his ass.
That's a little mean. Yeah.
No offense to Anthony, but I mean he looks a little tentative now. Kind of like Robbie. And a guy like Prochazka, if he senses that you're not going to come forward and you're not going to really challenge him, he's just going to freaking. I mean, look what he did to Ozdemir.
Just give me. All right. Let's be real. Smith versus Shogun Hua. He's already fighting Johnny Walker though, but that's a problem. Or sorry, he's fighting Paul Craig.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds right.
Yeah,
dude,
he's fighting Craig.
So
Krylov, are you thinking Krylov then?
I don't care. I want to see Anthony Smith either retire, do something in commentary, or take a long break for a little bit.
I like him on commentary. He's good on the
he's super entertaining
shows.
But another thing about that fight that really irritated me. That had to do with Alexander Rakic and the fact that, I'm glad he's not going to be getting a title fight or a title opportunity.
Here we go.
I mean, you have 10 seconds left on the clock. You have a guy severely compromised the whole fight. I mean, since pretty much round 1, really, he had the guy hopping on one leg. I mean, his kicks looked phenomenal the whole fight. It looks like Rakic really is a phenomenal kicker. Like that's where he is elite.
His kickboxing is high level.
Yes, high level. But, I mean, how can you not get a finish? I don't understand that. I don't understand how you have a guy that can barely walk in the first and second round pretty much, and for sure the first round. Like, my goodness, what are you doing? And then the thing that I want to highlight is that the last 10 seconds, no punches thrown, literally turns his back on the opponent and is celebrating. Like, that just disgusts me. That's disrespectful, and there's just no place for that. I mean... It's one thing to be showboating and like doing stuff during the fight and like because you're taking a chance, like you're kind of just flaring it up. But at the end of the fight, where you haven't necessarily. I mean, it's going to be a decision, but it's not like you super beat his ass. You just had a good fight. Throw some punches, make it entertaining, earn your freaking paycheck. That's. That ticked me off.
Also, to kind of show that level of disrespect against a very honorable fighter like Anthony Smith, you could beat him, but he doesn't deserve something like that. And if we want to talk about honorable, we you guys should remember that Anthony Smith could have been light heavyweight champion if he wanted to. When John Jones landed that illegal knee to him, he could have taken the DQ and won the belt, but he chose not to. That it kind of, to your point, it kind of does rub me the wrong way with him trying to celebrate when he didn't get the finish like he should have, and to a guy that doesn't deserve that kind of disrespect, you know?
Yeah.
But
exactly.
That's a light heavyweight.
Left a bad taste in my mouth. I mean, it put a damper on his performance because I mean, up until that, like
he looked good.
You looked phenomenal with your kickboxing, but you got to get that finish and you got to not act like a chump.
Yeah, that's just, and you want the thing
and
is,
then the call out after, like the
right.
title fight, that just put the cherry on top. Like, dude, you're crazy.
If you want a title fight,
delusional.
You did the two things you don't do. If you want to like actually make a decent statement for a title fight, you wouldn't get anyway. But if you want to make a better statement, how about you finish him, or you don't show both end. Those two things are really going to help you. He did the two wrong things, but that's a lot of heavyweights. Let's talk about the heavyweights now, Blake. So a few days ago, we had Stipe saying that he doesn't want to fight Francis because he's uninterested in that fight and he wants something new. So does that mean that we have the super fight between the heavyweight GOAT and the light heavyweight GOAT? Is this now the fight to make, Blake?
So here's the thing. If I'm Dana, I would ask Stipe this. I'd be like, so how many fights do you have left to Stipe?
Mm-hmm.
If Stipe has one fight left,
God, dude,
it's got to be John Jones.
It has to be.
It's absolutely got to be John Jones. Because, I mean, we've already seen the Francis fight. We saw how that's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure, he could land that crazy punch, but, I mean, I don't think Stipe is going to let that happen. He's already proven that he can outclass Francis pretty much everywhere, even in the striking department.
Right.
So I'm not really that interested in that rematch either, to be completely honest. Unfortunately, sorry, Francis, but
it's hard,
John Jones versus freaking Stipe is uncharted territory. I mean, that's going to be legitimate best versus best, potentially.
Mm-hmm. That could determine...
Still close to their primes, if not in it.
Mm-hmm. And I got to say that John Jones on his Twitter did make a very good point for this fight. Talking about the high risk for low reward for Stipe versus Francis in terms of Stipe, because if he wins, he defends his belt and he shows that he won again. But at the same time, if he loses, he's probably going to get knocked out, and that might be it for him, depending on how bad of a knockout it is.
If Francis beats you, it's usually a vicious knockout.
Exactly. So that could straight up end his career. That could take his belt and end his career in all actuality. And then you have the super fight between Stipe and Jones, which is a certified super fight, the easiest thing to advertise. Easiest thing. But the thing is that if Francis beats Stipe, that super fight is no more. It's no longer a super fight. It's still going to be a good fight, but it's never going to have anything close to the hype and build-up. Whereas if Stipe hasn't lost and he's still the champion of the heavyweight division. Undoubtedly.
It would probably be the focus would probably shift to Francis.
Exactly.
If he lost that fight, because then Francis would be champ,
mm-hmm.
and then it would have to be John Jones versus Francis. So he'd probably lose out on that fight altogether.
Also, to Stipe's point too, he's way closer to John Jones' size than he is to Ngannou's size, and Stipe might be able to get the weight advantage because we were talking about this a bit ago, but talking about how Stipe was around 230, 235 for his fights with Daniel Cormier. But with a guy like John Jones, he might be able to get up to 245, maybe even somewhat close to the 250 range, because he doesn't have to worry about the wrestling like he did with Daniel. And also, that weight advantage would give him a bit of an easier time on the ground if John Jones decides to take it there.
True, very true.
So, it's hard. I feel so bad for Francis. I really do feel bad for him because he deserves a shot. But if we're talking business, straight up talking business, and straight up talking pay-per-view buy rates, and the bigger hype for a fight, that is the light heavyweight GOAT against the heavyweight GOAT for the heavyweight championship. That's a fight. And now, if we want to talk about hype, this fighter, if you want to call him that still, has a lot of hype behind him, and that is newly made free agent Brock Lesnar. So recently, he's just his contract with WWE expired a couple of days ago. And while in the past it may seem like, because he has done this in the past where he hasn't signed a new contract, he threatens to go back to UFC or to other fighting promotions, and then so he can get more money from the WWE. In all likelihood, that is what's going to happen with this. But Blake, the small chance that we actually see Brock Lesnar back in a cage.
Nope.
No, I know it's not going to happen.
43 years old.
You know, it's not going to happen.
It's not like he's just, there's so many more athletic specimens now. I mean, back when he was the champ, he was beating people's, faces in.
Mm-hmm.
He was the athletic specimen for the most part. I mean, that guy was like kind of the biggest guy you're going to run into, the strongest guy you're going to run into.
But funny you bring up the age, though, because we can see Brock Lesnar in a few places. We could see him, if we're talking his professional wrestling, we could see him back in WWE. A lot of people are talking like AEW, the other wrestling competitor now. Mm-hmm. Or you have the UFC, or even if they might be able to afford him, you do Bellator, so they can put together the fight we never got, Blake. We have 43-year-old Brock Lesnar against same age 43-year-old Fedor Emelianenko for... Come on, man. Come on, give us a fight.
I just don't see it, man. I cannot see it because Brock, let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to get paid more money to not get punched in the face? Or do you want to get paid less money to get punched in the face?
Talking about what Brock Lesnar does in professional wrestling, he makes 8 appearances a year. And he mostly wins those, and he hardly gets hurt in those, and he's making more money. So, Blake, if I was Brock Lesnar, I think I'd just stick with the wrestling.
Even if the wrestling paid less a little bit, I'd probably still stick with the wrestling. It's like at this point, you probably have so much money.
Right.
You're good.
Fine.
I don't need to fight Fedor. I don't need to fight John Jones. Don't need to fight Stipe. Don't need to fight Francis.
But if we're talking,
the what if scenario.
The what ifs are very, very juicy because we already
think
had
about that.
John Jones back on Twitter. He said, "I'll beat your ass too, Brock," which in all likelihood would happen. But with these 4 fights are possibilities. Maybe not great possibilities, but they are. I guess 1% chance is still a chance. They are possible with him facing off against either Fedor, Francis, Jones, or Stipe. Now, who wins in these fights? Brock Lesnar versus Fedor. Who you got? Because I think I'm taking Brock on this one.
You think you said Lesnar versus Fedor first?
Yes, Lesnar versus Fedor.
Man, that's tough. That's tough. I think
it is.
I don't know. I mean, it just depends. Is Brock allowed to use steroids?
Well, Bellator is a little lighter on that, so that's what I was going with. If Brock
Brock might be able to get that one.
Brock is going to be better on steroids than Fedor is going to be better on steroids.
I think Fedor was, he's still scary, but 10 years makes a big difference.
I'd take Brock Lesnar in that one. But now I think we all know the obvious answers. Brock versus Francis. I'm taking Francis by decapitation.
Yeah, Francis by brutal knockout.
We saw what happened last time when we had the Ngannou Overeem fight. It's going to be worse than that because Overeem can still fight, and he's also one that beat Brock's ass too.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, no. Brock would just get mauled. I mean, he just doesn't have the movement to.
No. Brock versus
get out of the way.
The hard part about Brock though is he's always kind of been scared of getting hit. Is what it seems like. He's like every time in the fight he takes a big shot, he kind of curls up. That's what he did against Overeem too. So Francis would be a bad matchup. Now Brock versus Stipe. Stipe would piece him up. You just systematically dismantle him in the way that Stipe dismantled Francis Ngannou. Same thing happening there. Now,
I mean, Brock doesn't have any advantages over these guys.
No.
The only guy that he would maybe have a physical advantage over is Fedor. Well, I don't even talk.
No, I'm just talking
I'm
about
just
these
saying.
four guys. Yeah.
Yeah, just those four guys. That's really the only guy I think that he might be able to like dominate a little bit and
And
push him
now,
around.
really, Blake, the super fight that everyone wants is Brock versus John Jones.
10 years ago,
Ugh,
maybe even 5 years ago.
John Jones would kick his ass.
I think
Straight
so.
up. Straight up. See, the thing is, though, when Brock was UFC heavyweight champion and why he was looking really good when he had that run in the UFC is because I know it was semi-recent, but at that time, the fight game has evolved so much since then. And Brock was just a
One trick pony.
he was just a mauler that
Yep.
if he got to you, he would win. And the game is transformed so much since then. Brock is just going to get outclassed
Yep.
by any top 10 fighter, I would say. Non-roided Brock would lose to any top 10 UFC heavyweight right now.
I think so too. I mean, I'd have to look at the rankings real quick just to be sure, but I'm pretty. I'd almost even take Paul Craig.
Okay. Heavyweights. Okay. Does he beat Walt Harris?
Does he beat Paul Craig? What do
Does
you
he
think?
beat Paul Craig?
Does
Brock
he beat
Lesnar
Paul
versus
Craig?
Paul Craig.
I think Paul Craig taps him out. Dude, he gets like a crazy leg triangle on him. Oh man.
Ugh.
Just lets Brock take him down and just submits him from his back.
Tony Ferguson against Brock Lesnar.
Man, I don't know. I
Here,
think
Blake.
I think
The
Tony Ferguson would ankle pick him.
The fight to make is Brock Lesnar versus Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Oh,
Hey,
talk about wrestling a bear.
right? Khabib's be the bear before he'll be the hairless bear again. Augustus Sakai probably beats Brock. Alexander Volkov.
Man, Sakai this weekend. Have we even brought that up?
No, I like.
Overeem?
If we want to talk about it, I like Sakai against Overeem. I would actually take Sakai.
Oh man, dude, Overeem keeps having to fight these young, upcoming. Well, not really young. Not all these guys are young, but these kind of transcending. I would say the newcomers to the top of the division. He always has. He's always seems like he's the first one to fight him.
He's been looking decent.
Rosenstruik,
Alistair still
Francis.
He beat up on Walt Harris. Unfortunately, given the circumstances of that fight, back when they were still in Tampa.
That was a tough fight to watch, man.
It's just from
everyone wanted to root for him.
It was that I don't like talking about that because that was just rough.
Yeah.
But Sakai versus Overeem is going to be good. Who you got in this one?
Shoot, I mean Sakai's on one of those streaks that it's hard to pick against. Overeem's going to be that wily veteran though. It's going to be a tough one. I don't know. It's a
fun matchup. The rest of the card may suck or seem lackluster, at least on paper. But this main event is something that I'm looking forward to.
You know what else I'm looking forward to too is Pereira. How do we say that? Michel Pereira. That guy, he has a little bit of a weight issue, but if he can get that under control, he's one of those guys. I don't know if you remember, but he's had some. Just type his name in YouTube, man.
It's good stuff.
He does some crazy spinning shit,
right?
As Sean O'Malley would say.
And now, before we kind of wrap up the show, Blake, you gave me enough time to think about the ideal fight for Brock Lesnar to come back to, and that is against Amanda Nunes. Thank you very much. Brock Lesnar versus Amanda Nunes. Jesus. Book it, please. But that's.
Go take a lap for that one.
No, I'm just going to end it now because that's going.
I think Amanda Nunes would beat his ass too.
I really did. Amanda Nunes.
If she could put some hands on him, man.
Amanda Nunes.
Brock ain't gonna want to mess with that.
Round 1 TKO for the women's GOAT. You heard it here first. Brock Lesnar gets his ass beat by Amanda Nunes. And on that note, we're gonna wrap things. Thank you everyone for listening. UFC Vegas 8. Little UFC Vegas 9, looking at Sakai and Overeem, and then Brock Lesnar's back, and John Jones versus Stipe Miocic is the fight to make. Everyone, you can check us out on Twitter at Fourth Long Radio, at Instagram Fourth Long Radio, and also our website where you can find everything. Where actually, just for all of you amazing UFC fans, I've dedicated a separate page on the website that is just devoted for our UFC content. So you got all that for you. You can find our website at www.thefourthandlong.com. And like I said, Blake, it's been a great time. And then also, we already mentioned go check out, if you haven't already, that Josh Emmett interview. It was a barn burner. Like all of his fights. But Blake, you looking forward to UFC Vegas 9?
Yep, there's a couple fights on there. Another good fight on there too. Ricky Seller. That should be another good bantamweight fight.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there's at least 3 or 4 fights I'm really looking forward to this weekend. It should be a good fight weekend.
Also, to UFC's credit, most of the time it may seem like a lackluster card on paper, but they always seem to entertain us nonetheless. God bless UFC for keeping these fights rolling, because we're getting close to more sports, but UFC, they've been there for us, and we have to
Every
respect that.
weekend till Christmas, right?
Every week until Christmas. God bless the UFC. And Blake, how about we say this again like we say on every UFC show? It's a great time to be a UFC fan.
It's a fantastic time to be a UFC fan. Better watch this weekend.